Hello and welcome. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, Diplomatic Channel explores the issue of AFRICOM being moved to the continent as requested by President Muhammadu Buhari. You see, over the last few weeks, insecurity in Nigeria has escalated with more news of kidnappings and banditry activities. It seems like in every corner of the country, there is some activity of unrest meant to put fear in the minds of people. Where is the military, you ask? They've been fighting the insurgency in the north and northeast specifically, and that's where they have been for over the last 10 years. The government says it's doing everything it can. There have been meetings with security chiefs, discussions on possible solution, and advice coming from all quarters on how to tackle this problem. And then the president suggested the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, to have the U.S. Africa Command moved to Africa. We'll be talking about this in a while with former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Robin Sanders. But first, a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles.
The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission has held its inaugural Diaspora Quarterly Lecture Series titled Mobilizing Nigerians in the Diaspora for National Development, with the Minister of Interior as one of the invited guests. Mr. Rauf Aregbesola in his address revealed that Nigeria will begin producing passport booklets in the country to remove the constant shortage problems, while all payments will be done online and all passport issuance processes will not take longer than 6 weeks. He also informed that Nigeria Immigration Service will be establishing non-judgmental front desk offices at major international airports in Nigeria to deal with passport issues.
As soon as you land in Nigeria and your temporary passport is taken off you, right at the airport, but at the airports I've mentioned, you can renew your passport, your expired passport. It is in this regard that the Nigerian Immigration Service recently granted a waiver for Nigerians with expired passports desirous of coming to Nigeria to do so without fear of harassment by airlines.
During the summit, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada, said harnessing the human capital and material resources of Nigerians in diaspora towards socio-economic, cultural and political development of the country can no longer be ignored.
The population of Nigerians in the diaspora, I understand, is put at conservatively about 70 million. And we value them as real catalysts for economic development of our country. We also value their contributions, the contributions of the diaspora in such countries as Israel, India, and Philippines, to mention but a few. And because they have made tremendous impact on the development of their countries. And I therefore believe that the establishment of our own Nigerians in Diaspora Commission is a right step in achieving the same noble objectives.
NIDCOM chairman, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, the convener of the summit, says she expects the lecture to become a major aspect of national discourse where Nigerians can be informed about government's policies, programs and projects in the country.
We're hoping that through this discourse we'll challenge our intellect, our minds and our hearts as discussants on this platform with all of you participants from the diaspora from all over the world. And we hope that we'll also be able to connect you, Nigerians in the diaspora, with opportunities that are bound back home in Nigeria as we have this constant and continuous conversation. So we encourage all of you Nigerians abroad to participate at this webinar. It's going to be once a quarter, and we'll be selecting things that topics that you say you want to hear. This is our country. We all have to work collectively to build our dear country, Nigeria. So welcome to the inaugural Diaspora Quarterly Lecture Series.
Participants of the lecture were drawn from across Africa, Asia, Oceania, Europe and the Americas who raised questions on different topics. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to reports alleging that Nigerian nationals are stranded in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a result of the volcanic eruption there. In a statement, the ministry noted that the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines fall under the purview of the Nigerian High Commission in Trinidad and Tobago, and that the Nigerian mission in the port of Spain and that's in Trinidad and Tobago are in contact with the Nigerian Community Association in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, headed by Dr. Golu Anyoleke, and that there is no request by the Nigerian community there for evacuation back home. The ministry also called out one Dr. Levy Wilson Odo, who it says has been parading himself as the Honorable Consul of the island, as his appointment was terminated on July the 16th, 2019. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country firmly rejects pressure not to build in Jerusalem, referring to international condemnation of planned evictions of Palestinians from homes in the city claimed by the Jewish settlers. Tensions over Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in East Jerusalem have stoked daily confrontations and prompted Washington to say it is deeply concerned and wants authorities to approach residents with compassion and respect. Finally, the Chadian military has claimed victory against northern rebels following weeks of fighting. The conflict against the Libyan-based rebels had thrown the country into a crisis when President Idris Deby died after being wounded on the front line last month. Sunday's victory parade was aimed at boosting the popularity of the Chadian military at a time of great uncertainty in the country.
It is officially known as the United States Africa Command, one of the 11 unified combatant commands of the United States Department of Defense, headquartered at Kelly Barracks in Stuttgart, Germany. Founded in 2007, the command partners counters transnational threats and malign actors. It strengthens security forces and responds to crisis in order to advance U.S. national interests and promote regional security, stability, and prosperity. At least that's what it says on its website. Your next question is probably, why is AFRICOM located in Germany? And you see, according to an article written by a former American ambassador to Nigeria, John Campbell, when former U.S. President George W. Bush established AFRICOM in 2007, the African reaction to it was hostile. Nigeria took the lead in persuading other African states against accepting that it be headquartered on the continent. Hence, the American command moved to Germany, from where it has operated since, fighting insurgents in the Sahel and focused on humanitarian crises on the continent, such as the Ebola epidemic. However, there's not been much cooperation between the Nigerian military authorities and the U.S. command, some of which have to do with America's refusal to sell sophisticated military equipment to the Nigerian military. Now, apart from the purchase of 12 A-29 Super Tucano aircrafts, Nigeria has not bought military weapons from the United States. So imagine the surprised turnaround in attitude by the Nigerian government to AFRICOM when President Muhammadu Buhari raised, during his virtual meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the issue of relocating AFRICOM headquarters to Africa. You see, in August last year, AFRICOM began looking for a new headquarters following a directive by then U.S. President Donald Trump. Then Defense Secretary Mike Esper announced the U.S. forces will leave Germany, honoring a pledge by President Trump to cut the number of troops in the European nation. According to President Trump, the move was necessary. He says Germany was not spending enough on defense. AFRICOM said it will assess options elsewhere in Europe and options in the United States. But a move to Africa was not being considered. Secretary Blinken did not have a response for President Buhari then, but now the U.S. government has responded, saying it has no plans to relocate AFRICOM from Germany to Nigeria or any other parts of Africa, despite the worsening state of insecurity in the continent, which is reason why President Buhari raised the topic. The Pentagon, which gave the response, says previous studies have shown that the cost of relocating AFRICOM from Germany to Africa is very huge. The Pentagon says it would, however, continue to value Nigeria and other countries in Africa as important partners. Let's talk now to America's former envoy to Nigeria, Ambassador Robin Sanders. Ambassador Sanders was former U.S. ambassador to the Republic of Congo from 2003 to 2005 and to Nigeria from 2007 to 2010, during which time she traveled to almost, if not all, the states in the country. Ambassador Sanders, thank you for joining me on Diplomatic Channel. Well, I think that the times that you were in Nigeria were pretty different from, what we have now with all the insecurity and the security challenges in the country. What do you make of what you're hearing now about the country?
I think that I follow the insurgency in Boko Haram and talked about national security issues way since I departed Nigeria, and particularly in paying attention to the north and the changes in the insurgency in Nigeria. And the difference, the stark difference is certainly the complexity of today's insurgent fight, because it is quite different in the sense of the number of players. Not only do you have Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West Africa, but you also now have this proxy relationship in some cases where Boko Haram or the Islamic State in West Africa are using bandits or other militia groups to carry out their atrocities. And so it's a much more complex security framework and a more challenging one to get under control.
And what goes through your mind when you hear news from Nigeria about insecurity? Because I know you still have a lot of friends here, and you have taken a keen interest in Nigeria.
I think the main thing is what we can do as a partner, as the U.S. government and other partners that Nigeria has to help Nigeria sort of manage the complexity and the differences in the types of security threats that you have. They're not all simultaneous, and they're also very different in strategy and in terms of how you would go about addressing those. So the main thing is what we can do from our end in the U.S. to further step up our assistance to Nigeria, our training to Nigeria with your military and advising, or in an advising capacity. We're already doing some of that, and we have been for many, many years. It's not new. But what do we need to do to make a shift change to better help Nigeria address the complexities that you have now that seem to change almost on a daily basis in the security sector for Nigeria?
Let's talk about AFRICOM now. Do you think that Nigeria missed a big chance of having the U.S. Africa Command headquartered in the country and on the continent? Would it have helped to prevent some of the challenges that we see today?
I think, hindsight is always going to be 2020, and so you could probably say yes to that. But I remember the AFRICOM policy discussion quite well. I was at the National Security Council at the White House at the time, and also, of course, in Nigeria when Nigeria said quite pointedly that it did not want the AFRICOM headquarters in Nigeria. The original plan always was to have AFRICOM on the continent. The top countries that were being looked at were sort of in Southern Africa. Botswana was very much on the top of the list. But the outcry from the continent writ large was that they did not want a full military presence on the continent, and didn't want the U.S. to militarize the African continent. So AFRICOM ended up in Stuttgart. And in the end, I think that Stuttgart definitely was the right place in the end for it to be. Logistics planning was all done. We looked at, how much time it took to get from Botswana to West Africa, from Stuttgart to West Africa, and it's about the same amount of time. But the benefit of having it co-located in Stuttgart with the European Command is that it allows for more resources to be pulled when needed. So, in retrospect, I guess you could argue that, but right now I think where AFRICOM is and where it has been is probably ended up being the right place for it. We can move, we have the flexibility and the resources to move quickly. So I think that that's probably the least of the challenges. Question is, what do we do together to address the security, not necessarily where the home base is in order to get that accomplished.
Our conversation with Ambassador Sanders continues in a moment. Please join us again. And I'm sure you believe that Africa does need AFRICOM, considering the security challenges and pockets of insurgency in parts of the country, especially in parts of the continent, especially in West Africa. But AFRICOM says it has been responding, to some of these challenges on the continent, even from its headquarters in Germany. They're mainly involved in humanitarian crises. They mentioned the Ebola crisis, which they helped a lot with. Do you think that it being headquartered in Germany actually does affect its response time, like you rightly mentioned, and its efficacy on the continent here in Africa?
Actually, I don't. I think that AFRICOM has already shown, and it's been there certainly more than a decade now, that it can respond, whether it's training, whether it's advisors on the ground, whether it's resources, whether it's equipment. We've been doing that. Even when I was there, I had elements from AFRICOM, come to Nigeria many, many times to help with advising and training, humanitarian assistance, and all of those elements. And we do that, or AFRICOM does that all over the continent. So I don't think where AFRICOM is located is part of the argument. I think the argument is, what do we do to stem the insurgency and the complexities with the various types of groups that are really manifesting themselves all through the Western Sahel, but particularly in the 5 countries that surround Nigeria. And also, I think when I was on your program the last time, I talked about paying more attention to Mozambique. And if you're following the news at all, you see that the security situation in Cabo Delgado is almost reminiscent, in my view, to the early stages of Boko Haram in northeastern Nigeria.
So many questions surrounding Boko Haram's existence and how it has thrived in Nigeria. But you know why I'm asking the question about response time? Because President Muhammadu Buhari did make that request to Secretary of State Antony Blinken about relocating AFRICOM to Africa, because based on a directive by former President Donald Trump, AFRICOM is looking for a new headquarters. But the U.S. government has responded to President Buhari's request. The Pentagon says it would be a costly move for AFRICOM to be relocated to Africa. Beg your pardon. And then there are no plans to move to Africa. However, AFRICOM is looking for a new headquarters location, apart from the obvious reason, of course, which is cost. You think it might have something to do with Nigeria's rejection at the beginning, of AFRICOM's existence?
No, I actually think it doesn't have anything to do with that at all. The cost factor is there, but I also want to sort of touch a little bit on the opening salvo of your question, because it's not just AFRICOM that is, quote unquote, looking for a new home. I wouldn't even put it in those terms. The Defense Department is looking at an entire viewpoint of where different commands are. So it's not just AFRICOM, it's also European Command, and the discussions about whether it's going to be in Belgium, what have you. So where it is located, like I said before, is the least of the issue. As long as we are an active and engaged partner with Nigeria and any country that we have a partnership with on security, we can be there. We have the equipment, the flexibility, and the response time is not that different, no matter where the base is located. And the other thing, and this is certainly an American point of view, I'll admit that up front, is that, say for instance, 3 or 2 years down the line, you change your mind and you don't want us there anymore. Then there's another cost for us to then find another place to move. So I think the cost issue is there, but it's, to me, the least important challenge. The challenge really is to help our partners and our friends like Nigeria further address the complexities of your security issues, because there are different things that have to be done with the different groups that you have. And we have, representatives and elements and supplies and humanitarian programs already from AFRICOM in Nigeria, and they've always been there at least more than a decade. And those things have been stepped up, including sharing intelligence. So that doesn't change. And having a headquarters in Nigeria, the time to move all of that to Nigeria or anywhere on the continent at this point just doesn't make a lot of strategic sense, in the sense that it takes away from the time of working with you on the actual issues on the ground, instead of us spending months and months to move headquarters. And then, of course, there is the cost factor. And then thirdly, in my view, is what happens 3, 4, 5 years down the line. Do we have to move again? So I'm not in the corner of moving AFRICOM, even though initially I was very much a supporter, a decade ago, of the headquarters being on the continent. But at that time, the outcry against it was just so heavy. And so it ended up going elsewhere.
Yeah, and about Boko Haram, you did see, the beginning, I would say, of the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria. As you look back, what do you think has not been done to address the issue? Because I know that there were a lot of international partners at the beginning with the Nigerian military providing logistics support, intelligence, and of course military support at some point. But the American government and down the line refused to sell weapons to Nigeria. And I think that sort of broke off the relationship that the US and Nigeria have as regards to Boko Haram and the cooperation, although, a lot of cooperation is still going on, I think, on logistics. But looking back now, do you think the government perhaps ignored, some aspects of the beginning of this insurgency to nip it in the bud, which is why we have, what we have today? The different arms, I think, of insurgency, the banditry and the kidnapping that are currently going on in the country?
I think that, the main challenge, and I would sort of separate the two things. Again, certainly when I was there, I wouldn't say it was nascent, but I would say it was quite different, and it was quite located in one sector of the country. And what you have now is more players, more complicated players, a more complicated situation, and the fact that you have it in several places across the nation, now in the Northeast and central region, and certainly in the Northwest as well. So it's a very different mosaic of players, and the complexities make it more challenging to address. But to your point about, hindsight is definitely 2020. What could have, should have been done that wasn't done. I almost think that that's not even, where the emphasis and the effort needs to be. The question is, what do we do now? Because the resources and the equipment and the advising and the intelligence sharing, despite the difference of viewpoint on whether or not we blocked an arms sale, and there are other reasons for that that will take a lot more time to explain here. But say we take that piece out of it, we still were there to help Nigeria. And I think that the challenges is that the insurgents, not just in Nigeria, but you could look at Syria, you could look at, even Iraq. The insurgent groups have always been slightly ahead of us in where they want to go and how they plan to do that. And we are catching up on that a lot better than we were even 5 or 6 years ago. But I think that the fact that they can morph so quickly into doing different things that we don't even imagine they can do, I think is a real challenge. So we've got to get ahead of them in terms of, what is the next step? What is the next horrible thing that they could possibly do, and get ahead of that in order to be able to combat that. In the meantime, you can't take away the development issues that are connected to that. What makes participating in an insurgency attractive to elements of the population? What are the development issues, whether they're health, whether they're education, whether they're lack of hope, whether there's a sense that, this is the only way that I can survive? What are the underlying factors, what we call the drivers here, that attract nationals to these insurgent groups? Got to be able to deal with both of those things, the security aspect and the drivers.
Many have said Nigeria can handle her insecurity problems. Can Chad handle hers?
I think that's going to remain to be seen. I think that a lot of that will be determined by what happens on the political front. Because if you have political instability and demonstrations in the street and this constant maneuvering in terms of whether or not you're going to have constitutional order or not, or whether or not you're going to maintain an extra constitutional framework like the Transitional Military Council, that makes it uncertain. And when you have an uncertain political environment, it makes managing an insurgency quite difficult.
Ambassador Robin Sanders, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for making so much time to speak with us today.
Pleasure as always. Thank you.
And a happy Mother's Day also.
Thank you. Same to you as well, and all the mothers in Nigeria.
This is where we end the program. And don't forget, you can watch previous episodes. Just go to our website, channelstv.com, and search for Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.